Billionaire insults waiter. But the waiter's Chinese reply left everyone shocked. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers, laughter, and the quiet clinking of glasses. It was an evening of wealth, a gathering where influence and status filled every corner. But beneath the polished glamour, something cruel began to unfold. A billionaire, seated high above the rest, chose the waiter as his target, a man simply doing his job. The mockery began softly, then grew into waves of laughter that rippled across the room. Yet in the middle of the humiliation, the waiter remained calm, steady. Because hidden behind his silence was a truth no one expected, a reply that would soon turn every smirk into stunned silence. The evening was meant to be a celebration. Business leaders, politicians, and celebrities filled the grand hotel ballroom, each competing for attention under the glittering chandeliers. Waiters moved silently between the tables, carrying trays heavy with crystal glasses and fine dishes. Among them was a man whose presence most guests hardly noticed. To them, he was simply a server in a crisp uniform, a shadow passing between conversations. Yet behind his steady movements was a quiet dignity. Every step he took, every plate he balanced, carried the weight of discipline and humility. He had worked long hours to support his family, often overlooked, often underestimated. Tonight was no different, until he approached the table of the evening's most powerful guest. The billionaire sat at the center of attention, surrounded by admirers who hung on every word he spoke. His fortune was legendary, his arrogance even more so. To him, those who served were invisible, existing only to fill his glass or clear his plate. But as the waiter leaned in to offer a dish, the billionaire's eyes narrowed, and a smirk curled across his face. The room fell quiet for a moment, sensing the shift. What began as a single mocking comment soon turned into a cascade of ridicule, each word dripping with contempt. Laughter followed, sharp and cruel, echoing through the hall. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, torn between amusement and discomfort. And at the center of it all stood the waiter, calm and unshaken, as if waiting for something the others could not see coming. The billionaire's laughter echoed like a command, and soon the others at the table followed. His voice carried across the ballroom, dripping with mockery, each word chosen to belittle. He spoke of wealth, of power, of privilege, contrasting his own life of luxury with the man standing silently at his side. To him, the waiter was nothing more than a prop in his performance. He commented on his appearance, his posture, even the way he carried a tray. With every insult, the crowd's laughter grew louder, a cruel chorus that filled the room. For some, it was easier to join in than to stand against the man whose influence stretched far beyond the walls of this banquet hall. Others looked away, uneasy but silent. The waiter stood still, his hands steady despite the sting of humiliation. His eyes remained calm, fixed on the task before him, refusing to flinch under the weight of ridicule. But beneath that quiet exterior, something stirred. Years of discipline, years of perseverance, years of being underestimated had taught him the strength of patience. He knew this moment was not about weakness. It was about timing. Around the hall, conversations hushed as the billionaire pushed further, testing the boundaries of cruelty. He raised his glass and asked if the waiter even understood the world. He served, mocking his intelligence and background. Guests chuckled nervously, aware that the line between entertainment and humiliation had long been crossed. Yet no one intervened. Not one person stood to defend the man who bore the weight of their scorn. The waiter bent slightly, refilling a glass, his face betraying nothing. But his silence was not submission. It was preparation. He was not the man they believed him to be. Hidden behind his quiet presence was a depth of knowledge and a skill no one in that room expected. Every second of restraint was building toward a moment that would shift the power in an instant. The billionaire leaned back, satisfied with his spectacle. He believed he had proven his superiority, that his laughter was the final word. The room buzzed with uneasy energy, torn between amusement and guilt. And in that fragile pause, the waiter finally lifted his gaze, not with anger, but with something far more powerful. A choice had been made. The laughter was about to end. The billionaire, drunk on his own arrogance, raised his voice once more, mocking the waiter with exaggerated gestures. His words dripped with superiority, casting the man before him as little more than a caricature. The guests laughed, some nervously, others wholeheartedly, swept up in the spectacle of wealth and cruelty. But then it happened. The waiter straightened, his hands no longer busy with glasses or plates. He looked directly at the billionaire, meeting his gaze with quiet confidence, and then, in flawless Mandarin, his voice rang out across the hall. The words were clear, sharp, and impossible to ignore. What he spoke was not just a reply, but a statement, delivered in the billionaire's own language with perfect tone and precision. The effect was immediate. The billionaire froze, his smirk faltering, his glass pausing halfway to his lips. The laughter around the room choked into silence, replaced by gasps of disbelief. No one had expected it. The man they thought beneath them, the man they had mocked and humiliated, had just revealed a skill that none of them possessed. His words carried more than language. They carried dignity, intelligence, and strength. Every sentence was a reminder that worth is not measured in money or power, but in resilience and character. For the first time that evening, the billionaire had no reply. His arrogance crumbled under the weight of exposure, and his silence spoke louder than his wealth ever could. Around the hall, heads turned, eyes widened, and the atmosphere shifted from mockery to awe. The waiter, once invisible, now commanded the entire room. The balance of power had flipped, and in that instant, everyone understood. The joke was not on the waiter, it was on them. The ballroom, once alive with cruel laughter, now sat in stunned silence. The billionaire shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his confidence shattered, his carefully constructed image slipping through his fingers. For the first time, he was not the center of control. He was exposed. The waiter did not gloat. He did not raise his voice or draw out the moment. He simply lowered his gaze, collected the empty glasses from the table, and moved with the same steady grace as before. Yet everything had changed. His reply in Mandarin lingered in the air, impossible to erase, echoing in the minds of those who had laughed just moments earlier. Whispers spread quickly among the guests. Some stared at the waiter with newfound respect, others with shame at their own silence. They had witnessed a moment where dignity stood taller than arrogance, where a man with no wealth or status revealed a strength that money could never buy. The billionaire's power had always come from the fear and admiration of others. But in that instant, he had lost both. His laughter, once infectious, now felt hollow. His arrogance, once untouchable, was exposed as fragile. And all it took was a single reply, a reminder that humanity is not measured by what you own, but by how you treat others. The waiter continued his work as if nothing had happened, but his quiet defiance left an imprint no one could forget. That night, the room had been taught a lesson. Respect is not optional, and humility can come from the most unexpected places. And so, the question lingered for every person present, and for every person listening now. When faced with injustice, will you stand with the laughter of the powerful or with the dignity of the silent? If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect and then share it. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done if you were in that room? Don't forget to hit like if you believe dignity is stronger than arrogance, and subscribe for more powerful stories that shine a light on injustice and humanity. Together, we can make sure these lessons are never forgotten.